Okay, so here we are, and I'm gonna have to talk about gravity. Based off of this guy's video, based off of another video of the actual stuff, and his own, plus I made a bunch of comments. Let's see how many of the comments are in his video. First of all, space-time is not curved. Second of all, electrons do orbit normally! They go very freaking fast, so that's why it looks like a blur. Also, we don't have accurate satellites. We are beaming time measurements, like specific increments of time. 1 Mississippi. And then it gets sent over to the clock, and they record as 1 Mississippi. And they are on that beat of time based off of what we send them. And electromagnetic fields move like fluid. The field itself is this thing. It's the force carrier. Not talking about electrons. Electromagnetic field itself. Experience buoyancy. Local gravity is another word for that. However, far stuff is a completely other equation. So, I have summarized the video. Bada boom. If you want to keep listening, go ahead and keep listening. I hate this shit. I'm tired of your nonsense. All of you. I'm not talking to one person. I'm not talking to Tyler. I'm not talking to the general, the other scientist there, Cleo. Okay? I'm not talking directly to you. I'm talking to every motherfucker who's thinking about science with regards to gravity, time dilation, electromagnetism, a lot of this stuff you are getting wrong. You're getting it wrong. Let's get off of this frame. You're getting it wrong. Where the hell's the button? Pisses off me if true, huge if true, everything if true. Let me explain something to you, okay? You're not exactly far off, but the problem is there are so many statements in this video, and it doesn't matter who says it, everyone believes it, and they're all wrong! They are all 100% wrong, so I'm going to add my face cam to this. Hello. It's your boy Simon Tracer. Fuck all of you. I'm tired of it. Let's get into the video and react, shall we?
Neil Abram. Specifically, gravity is fake. Oh, I sure hope not. We rely on gravity a lot in passive nuclear safety systems. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tyler Folse. I'm a nuclear engineer with a little over 10 years of experience.
And I am a pissed off general scientist who knows a ton of shit. Not just one set of theory. Although, yes, he is a professional when it comes to this stuff, and she has done a ton of research to figure these things out. You're still wrong!
Experience in the commercial nuclear power industry. From engineering to operations to emergency response.
No one refutes that. You're doing great.
But I can certainly
Excellent job.
Let's see what
I'm
this
gonna
is
eat
all
some
about.
chips.
This plane is about to send me into zero gravity for 10 minutes. And I'm going to try to explain why
Oh, it's the vomit comment.
gravity is a lie while I go without it for the very first time.
Gravity. Gravity ain't real.
Say we don't act.
Okay. We haven't gotten to... Let's get to each of the different incorrect... How big can I be? I can cover his forehead. Fuck that.
Actually need gravity.
Why is there gravity? Why does it work?
Just gonna be like one of those people that think the Earth is flat sort of deals.
Turns out
Nope.
that Gravity is one of the most controversial subjects in all.
That's because gravity isn't just one thing, and I only recently have solved for why there is local gravity versus the effect that you're feeling, the Earth versus the Sun. That's a different thing. It's a separate thing. That's the revelation I had. Let's move on.
This is not some philosophical debate. A huge amount of the tech that you use every day all depend on our current limited understanding of gravity.
Okay.
If we can understand this a little bit better, we can build more things that are huge if true.
So what really is
It's true. I know that's her tagline, but that's just funny.
gravity? In this video, we're going deep to learn how it truly works together.
And we're going to do this in 4 levels, starting
levels.
now.
Okay.
But you still haven't solved it. By the end of this video, they have not solved gravity, which is very fucking funny. Will I solve it? Let's get into the falsehoods first.
Right now, I'm in France, and I'm about to get on
You need
that
to understand
special plane.
this. Technically, I could turn off some of my
I've
fans.
been
You're
invited
right.
by the European Space Agency
I'm
as
hot
they
in
run
here.
experiments for their real upcoming space missions. They do like 2 of these a year. They invite 1 civilian each time. It's a really big honor. I'm also really
One civilian each
It's gonna
time
be
is a
great. They call
freaking
this plane
lie.
the Vomit Comet.
Okay, yeah.
It's
I'm
not
really
one
hoping that I don't
civilian
get
each
sick.
time.
And as
That's
we're
a
getting
lie.
I can't say I do the best with motion sickness either, so sure.
ready to take off,
You know, I need
I am
some
realizing
cheese. Where's my
how
cheese?
little I know about this
That's the
thing
cheese.
that's been holding me down my whole life. Here's what I thought I knew about
Those
gravity from high school.
That's not
Saving your
cheese, that's
Level
meat.
1.
I found meat.
Okay, I think I know what this is getting at. So
Oh,
the whole
here's the
gravity
cheese. Here's the
not
cheese. I
being a
got it.
force thing is quite often misunderstood. That's not level 1, so I'll wait till we get to level 2 or 3
No,
or
that's
whichever
bacon.
one that is.
What I learned in school is that gravity is what holds me down on Earth. That it's a force that objects with mass exert on each other. So
hell
the
is my
Earth
cheese?
pulls me toward it, and I, in some tiny way,
sounds
pull
like-
back on the Earth too.
There's the
Same thing with
Here it's a lot bigger, so yeah.
the sun pulls on the Earth, and the Earth, in some little way, pulls back on the sun too.
And the math that describes this is beautiful. It's just the relationship between the mass of one thing times the mass of the other thing divided by the distance between them squared. And g is a constant. Don't worry about it. So
It's a constant, don't worry about it. It's quite a small constant if you compare it to something like the universal electric constant when calculating electromagnetic forces. But yeah, we're over here in
Interesting that you
Newtonian
have the
physics
electromagnetic
territory. It's
forces
an
as
inverse square
understood
relationship,
as a
kinda
force
like
stronger than
the
gravity,
inverse square relationship
and not
between
realizing that it
radiation
can
dose
be
and your distance
the
from
part
source.
that's making
You double the
gravity
distance
even
from
work in the
source,
first
dose
place.
drops off by a factor of 4. Inverse square law comes up a lot.
this equation tells you how strong that pull will be.
But until today, Earth has always pulled me right down into the ground, which stops me. So to experience the raw, unfiltered effects of Earth's gravity, I need to go into free fall, which is exactly what this plane does. It's going to rise up and then plummet toward the Earth. This is the part that's making me nervous.
Yeah.
And as it does that, I'm going to be falling, and the plane is going to be
Weightlessness,
falling
yeah.
around me. And during that fall, I should feel like I'm floating.
Unfiltered effects of gravity go into a plane that removes gravity. I think she just mixed up her brain a little bit there. No big judgments about it, but I mean, you know, she totally messed that up. But we're moving on from that. Forget about that. That's not a big significant thing right now.
Like a skydiver or
So
That's
yeah,
like a typo.
it's a parabolic trajectory
I
that
don't give
this
a shit
plane
about
flies
typos.
at to create the experience of weightlessness, both for the people on it and as well as whatever
getting my
equipment
pie.
this can be used for testing. You could conceivably do something like this to test coolant behavior, because
Yes,
after
I
all,
need a plate
buoyancy
for pie,
goes
not
away
the
when you do
pie.
something like this. Though this is not a very stable situation because it only does it for a few seconds or minutes at a time. Because after all, you can run out of room real quick if you take your plane in free fall for too long. But
It's
gravity
not free
doesn't
fall.
actually go away. That's one misconception about this sort of stuff, is gravity doesn't go away. And the acceleration you experience due to gravity, even up at the space station, doesn't go down by very much. You're just orbiting. You're still in free fall. Another word for orbit is a clever way to fall without actually hitting the ground. But that's not what you're doing here. That's what you're doing in the space station.
Or an astronaut, which is why real astronauts train and run experiments
Yes.
on these planes.
This guy's name is John McFall, and an astronaut. That is hilariously
That's
awesome.
funny.
But hang on, why is rapidly falling anything like peacefully floating?
Think about it this way. So the Earth's gravity
Well, you're orbiting the Earth, though. Yeah.
creates a pull at
Well, the peacefully floating part is what happens when there's no air pushing on you, so you don't have any reference of if you are falling or not. You simply are, you just don't know it. Unless you have a tool that tells you. Like some kind of, I don't know, laser-based, like, thing that shows you the grid of how fast you're falling down. You can do that.
9.8 meters per second squared, or 1 g. If you're in a rocket out in space, and that rocket is
Sorry about my
accelerating
audio
at exactly
quality.
9.8
Not
meters
sorry
per
about
second
my
squared,
logic.
you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between standing on the ground and flying in that rocket.
Einstein called this the equivalent.
Hold on to that piece of information. It's going to be very important. It is very important. Because literally, that means that this planet is a freaking rocket going through space. The only reason why you're pulled down to it is because, guess what? It's moving towards you. It's not pushing, it's drifting along, and you are being pushed towards it. Right? And because of rotation, it's a unilateral force that is so constant, you really don't feel like you're falling away on one side of the planet and going towards it on the other side. You feel a inverse centrifugal force that's actually pushing you towards the bottom, which is basically the side of the planet because of its rotation. It's a constant in all directions because of its spin. If the Earth were to stop spinning, for example, you would have the Earth's motion through the space around the sun, and you would fall off the opposite side of the planet.
Principle.
I mean, this is restricted, and it says in a small enough region of space and time, the effects of gravity are indistinguishable from acceleration. You'd use the same logic and say you're on an...
No! Wait! I didn't even check this before. Let me see that again.
You wouldn't be able to tell the difference between standing on the ground and flying in that rocket.
Einstein called this the equivalence principle.
I mean, this is restricted, and it says in a small enough region of space and time, the effects of gravity are indistinguishable from acceleration. You'd use the same logic and say you're on an elevator in deep space. Good luck making a space elevator that goes.
No. Yeah, there's a difference when it comes to all of the different points of going around a circle, like the Earth happens to be similar to, like the poles are different than the equator, all that nonsense. However, it becomes a more broader, more spread out effect where the stuff from the sides affects you differently than the flatness of the rocket, which is only like a pinprick in the area. And at bigger and bigger scales, you have to think about the roundness of the effect of everything pulling towards, because you know everything's being pulled towards the planet. Not really pulled towards, but as the Earth rotates, or as anything that rotates, the force, the stuff, it ends up, again, drifting down towards the planet, right? The reason why the gravitational force that's nearby a rotating body like this is everywhere around that planet is because all the stuff nearby is pulling in towards it. And it doesn't matter if it's big or small stuff, it's all being, with eddy currents, just dragging down towards the planet. It doesn't matter if you're in the front of the planet or if you're behind. It would be great if you shoot a rocket so that it's launching in the direction opposite of the direction of the planet's drift through the solar system. So if the planet is moving in this direction, you don't want to send your rocket in that way because you're going to be using more force than if you send it the opposite direction. Easier launch times. That's why there's certain times for you to be able to launch. Otherwise, like if you wait like 12 hours, you'll be on the opposite side of the planet, and you'll be in a direction that, in relation to its orbit around the sun, that its motion is going to add to your own motion, requiring more force. If you could be on the other side, then its motion negates from your motion something, and you're able to escape easier.
It's that far.
And honestly, it sounded pretty intuitive to me at first. And then the more I thought about this,
Don't
the
overthink
more
it.
it started to just break my brain. Because if gravity and acceleration are the same, it means that being in freefall without air resistance is the same as floating in space. Because
Yeah, pesky air resistance.
they're both 0G, right?
Yeah, remember this idea. It's going to be important later. But right now,
I don't totally understand this yet.
It is your motion relative to the other item's motion nearby you. So, your motion in space, when you're quote-unquote falling, isn't you quote-unquote falling. It's you drifting at a rate that basically doesn't have you relative to everything else. You're not accelerating anymore. You are in free fall. So
I'm gonna
Here we
go
go.
try it.
So gravity feels like
and
a
it's
force.
ironic because when you're going like 100 kilometers an hour in a car, you feel like you're going kind of fast. But then you talk about a space station going 25,000 kilometers an hour, and you realize, or something. We'll get to that. Screw if the number's bigger, okay? But the force you experience is all nil. There's nothing. Why? Well, one, you're in an enclosed container, so you don't feel any rim resistance whatsoever, and two, you're up in space, so there's nothing else that is dragging you down. There's no eddy currents of any other buoyancy-based stuff pulling you towards anything else. Or that is to say, nothing else is moving hard towards you. Now you would think with moving at that speed you should experience like Mach 2 and multiple levels of gravity. Not the case. Zero gravity. Fascinating.
But it's really curved space-time. And inertial-based navigational systems, such as those used on a nuclear.
That's also because moving at a certain speed doesn't matter if you're moving what you're doing is you're moving a certain speed relative to the local object. If you're moving a certain speed in actual outer space, it doesn't matter. It's like moving backwards on the train. You'll be seen as moving. If you're moving the same speed as a train, then you're basically not moving at all relative to the ground. The same thing's happening out in space. It looks like you're floating because you're moving in the direct opposite direction compared to the motion through space that the Earth is doing.
Where ICBM
Does that make sense?
account for gravitational time dilation and acceleration.
Let's do this.
Here it goes.
Okay, so we just pulled up. I'm now feeling increased gravity. You might be able to tell in my
45
face.
degree.
Whoa.
Okay, yeah, you're going to be pulling a little bit of G's. Nothing like you'd experience, say, in a fighter jet, but yeah, you're going to feel heavy.
Feels like being in a car and you're accelerating.
As we shoot up, the acceleration that I'm feeling is about the same
50
as being on a
degrees.
planet with twice Earth's gravity, or 2G.
I'm feeling squished on the floor.
And again, perfectly safe for limited amount of time, especially if you're
Okay.
laid down like.
Let's just stop and remember, look at this diagram and then look at it again in the past. Where the hell is those bars? Look at this shit. Look at the inconsistency of this. Look at the complete inconsistency of this. How you see this red bar and it's over here, and then later on
With twice.
it's over there. That's because the vertical bar isn't registered and noted to be exactly where it is locally affecting, because the total effect is bigger than what they're showing in that strip. So you have this whole thing, and this diagram sucks ass because it doesn't show you the actual effect area. It's everywhere where you're experiencing the acceleration curve, which is the acceleration that gets you up to that height versus the ground or sea level of the planet. So basically, yay, I'm speeding up so I can reach up here. So that when I do the let go of everything and start drifting down, and everything seems weightless, I have a lot of time before I hit the ground.
Earth's gravity, or 2G.
I'm feeling squished on the.
And reality is, do you need to have this long downward, multiple G's going down? No. No, you don't. Not even close. You can wobble a lot more at the area near gravity. But what they do this for is to regulate your body. To give you anti-gravity and then give you some gravity instead of low gravity. Because you could sit at low gravity. There's no reason to re-accelerate you. Unless it's actually for a biological reason, which is why they do that. I assume. I don't know. That's not talked about. Right? Because the body isn't meant to experience zero gravity for so long. That's why they don't just stay there for so long. Besides the fact that you have to you've fallen for so long, you have to use that speed to be able to get back up. And I think they use that speed dipping down for a short amount of time and then dip back up so that they could actually have the speed to go up without needing a lot of... It's like a gravity assist, slightly. So you don't have to use a lot to accelerate. You gain momentum. And then once you're at that speed, you're able to go whoop, and then go back up with less effort. That's what I think is happening. Your inertia is building up at that point. That's why I think they do it. Not because they need to do it, but because it's the most effective way of doing it. Because otherwise you're waiting forever to get back up there. Or you're using more fuel than you want to. That's why. Let's move on. That's not even an important factor of this.
And again, perfectly safe for
And
limited
fuck this goddamn fuck this graph.
time.
Fuck this graph. Fuck this graph. Look at this fucking graph. Look at this graph. It's like, oh, what we're saying is at this point we are at this ratio of everything happening, and now we're starting to get into that thing where the stuff is happening. You drift up and eventually start falling, but mostly it's the fact that you're not accelerating either up or down, so that drift can only happen for so long.
Especially if you're laying down like that. But can you imagine trying to survive on another planet like that for an extended period of time? Humans would not evolve the way we did.
And then when we hit this point, oh my god.
Relief.
I feel all of my thoughts just left my head. I feel
Of your thoughts. What, did they just float out? That's awesome.
Zero G.
I've never experienced this, so I don't have a baseline here. You don't have to do something like this to be a nuclear engineer unless you also want to go into space or something.
So weird. It's not just your outsides, it's your insides too. So your stomach is moving around and your blood isn't getting pulled down from your head like normal. So you feel like there's more pressure inside of your skull. And then touching something will move you way farther.
So you're not in outer space. You're just experiencing what is essentially free fall or motion irrelevant to the atmosphere of the planet. That motion irrelevant to the atmosphere of the planet is basically the same thing as being out in space. Just short-lived because obviously the planet is coming towards us.
Than you think.
oh my god!
Yeah, it's a short-lived ride.
It goes so fast. Okay. That felt unbelievable. I don't even know what just happened. It's like nothing I've ever
Now,
experienced.
here's the thing, right? The experienced people, they're just standing there. They don't give a shit. They get it. They're mentally adapted. You want to think about trying to live on some other planet? These guys are fluctuating, and they get it. And they understand the dynamics of what's happening, and it's more chaotic, and they are attuned to that chaos, that it's like, okay, yeah, it's the same thing again. This is our first time. No, they don't take up just one person at a time, one civilian at a time. That is a complete lie.
Before in my life.
If I'm not mistaken, Physics Girl also did this, and she took up other people as well. It's not one civilian at a time.
Yeah, I'm not sure you can explain that.
I think so.
I'm not sure.
I'd like to try it again. No, I'd like to do it again, please.
We did it again.
Do it again.
1G, 2G, 0G, 2G, 1G, again and again and again.
Loop-de-loop.
To see this happening, just watch what happens when I throw this ball.
This is 2G. I'm about to go into 0G.
Oh, yeah, it's getting heavier.
Like, the amount of
And there it
force
goes.
necessary to lift the ball up.
This is Einstein's equivalence principle in action. I know that I'm falling in this plane, but I
feel nothing. I don't feel like I'm falling. I feel like I'm floating. But here's the craziest part. It's not.
That's because your definition of falling is stupid. You're not falling. The Earth is coming towards you. You are in a drift. You're not falling. You're drifting. There's a difference. And so that's why you don't feel gravity and stuff, because the Earth isn't coming towards you right now in a way that you can notice, right? The Earth coming towards you is a completely independent thing, right? Because of the fact that you are supposedly just falling. And the best thing is, in a plane, you can control your descent so you're not falling or you're not approaching the Earth faster than what would achieve 0G, obviously, because you do fall down faster and then start experiencing double G.
Just like I'm floating in space. It is exactly the same thing.
Sure.
Yeah, this is where things start to get weird.
Out.
You will look around and everything will look like it's weightless. In reality, you're inside a plane, and you might think to yourself, well, this is some sort of an illusion. What Einstein
The word of
realized
falling
is that
is just
situation
wrong.
of you in the plane and that situation of an astronaut deep in space are equivalent. They're identical. It's not that one looks like the other, but they are the same situation.
If we covered
Yeah.
all of the windows, there is nothing that I could do. No
Are there any windows on this plane? I don't see any, but okay.
test, no experiment to prove that
You cannot say that. You can't say that, and I will prove that eventually, but I don't care to right now. But you can't say that. There's no test that you can prove. Blah, blah, blah. There are tests that you can do. There are tests that you can do. Sophisticated and sensitive tests, like how we can figure out gravitational waves, which is a mind fuck. You're not even going to talk about gravitational waves today. It's just a mind fuck that you can have gravitational waves, but there's no such thing as gravity.
I'm falling in a plane and not floating in space. This is exactly what Einstein was talking about. And actually, astronauts orbiting Earth aren't really floating. They're falling too.
They're literally
Again, not falling. They are literally moving in a direction that stops them from meeting the approaching Earth. Okay? Think about it in that way and you won't use the word falling ever again as a scientist. As a civilian, use the word falling. It's perfectly fine. It works mostly, but it's wrong. You are simply moving.
Yeah. It's free fall, and orbits do decay over time.
towards the Earth all the time, and they're just cruising so fast that they miss the horizon and they never crash into it. If you were to stop it from cruising so fast, it would drop like a stone.
Yeah.
Right down to the Earth.
Yeah. And the contrary, if you were to accelerate it, it would go into a higher orbit.
So they are falling all the time. They are experiencing weightlessness all the time.
Okay, fine. So falling is floating.
Because literally, in order to keep up with the planet, you have to be going a certain speed. Because it's going a certain speed, you have to move along with it. Like a motorcycle moving along with the train on the outside. You start going so fast, eventually you'll beat the train. That's like being slung out into space. If you go so slow, the train will pass you. That's basically like falling into the planet. If the back of the train is considered to be the same as the surface of the Earth.
Why does that actually matter? It matters because it means that this plane actually made gravity disappear.
Gravity is gone. It's not there.
How did gravity disappear?
That's a misleading statement, and alright, let's see what they say.
Well, it was never really there to begin
Oh,
with.
here we go.
Yeah, the gravity that you experience on Earth isn't what you think. We're about to enter level 2.
It's not a
but
okay.
first,
I've done 6 parabolas, up and down. Feeling a little bit bit nauseous, I gotta be honest.
Just take some time, relax, sit against the wall,
Hi.
chill out.
Okay, while I do that in the plane, let's talk about level 2.
Take some time, relax, sit against the wall, chill out.
Okay, while I do that in the plane, let's talk about level 2.
Okay.
That version of gravity that I learned in school, the
By the way-
masses pulling on each other version, right? That came largely from Isaac Newton. And his way of thinking about the universe persisted, largely intact, for hundreds of years. But then, Albert Einstein...
You gotta hate that she's using one of those circular orbiting systems when we know that orbits don't work in a circular manner. They are ellipses, and there's no way to make a machine that properly simulates that. So, who cares? Cool toy. Nice toy. Irrelevant, but neat.
came along, and he had a new thought that caused our entire view of space and time to wobble. Oh, look how cool this is! But before I explain how, now,
Look how cool this is. Completely, like, besides the fact that obviously, who gives a shit about scale? The motion function in this device is nothing at all accurate to the actual orbits of the planets, because they are ellipses.
how did Einstein make our whole understanding of the universe wobble?
The important thing to remember is that scientists, especially physicists, are lazy people. That's the most important thing. And what I
I
mean
don't doubt that.
by that is that we want the minimal number of equations to explain the most stuff.
The holy grail here would be one equation or theory to describe everything. But we're not there yet. A few decades before
Theory
lazy
is
Einstein,
everything.
lazy James Clerk Maxwell had realized that he could distill all of electricity and magnetism down to a single thing, described in just 4 equations: electromagnetism. And those equations found that light was an electromagnetic wave. And these waves come
And a
in
particle too. It's also a photon, but sure.
different energies
Thank you.
across a
It is a
spectrum.
photon.
And
By the way, this is all radiation. This is another word for light-based radiation.
weirdly, all light had the same constant speed.
And I think you can guess what that speed is. It's the speed of light. So
That's a
Speed of light in water, vacuum, air? Which one?
bit like saying it's shaped like itself.
here we have an enormous, profound implication that shocked every.
The 300 million, obviously the incorrect number. No one's gonna care about the fact that it's 298 something. It's about there. Depending on the medium, it's definitely about there. Or a lot less.
Buddy, that's insane. It's nothing.
The speed of light in an Bose-Einstein condensate is 0. Almost. What?
Has a constant speed. That makes no sense.
But it's not just some equations. We have tested this.
You can slow it down a bit by by running it through water, which is actually where the blue glow comes from in nuclear reactors, because certain particles actually go faster than the speed of light in water. So you can kind of cheat and go faster than light in certain situations.
That is to say that light in a medium doesn't go as fast as a particle is capable of being accelerated, which means also you can go faster than the speed of light out of that medium also? Possibly.
It's incredibly
If you can hold together.
widely tested. These are facts we can experimentally confirm.
Everybody was confused by this, because up until then, to measure something's speed, you divided how far it goes
The two-way speed of light. Remember that one?
in the time it took to get there. But if If light is always going the same speed, no matter the distance or the time, then there's something wrong here.
Maybe there's something wrong
with your identity of distance.
with what we mean by distance and
Yes.
time, or if not wrong,
Yeah. That's
maybe
curved.
there's something relative.
This was Einstein's huge if true moment. He realized that if light is always the same speed, then distance and time have to be able to change. Going back to our original
I've gone through this in another video talking about why satellites and atomic clocks have their inconsistency with actual, like, steady time as measured by atomic clock on Earth based off exact motion of specific things that we are like, yeah, this is the exact time because it is consistent, because it is double checked and triple checked. And then we send that to the satellites so that they have consistent time because they can't do the calculations fast enough, good enough, accurately enough, because dumb programmers, not gonna lie.
Newtonian description of gravity. This part was distance. But if distance isn't stable, what is gravity anymore? It was so beautiful, and now the whole thing.
Distance, when you think about going around a planet, is like pi r squared plus you're always the thing about every distance that light travels inside of the satellite atomic clock, you have to think about it as it was going in a straight line, but that entire unit is going in a circular line. A massive circular line that is almost straight, but not straight, and you have to compensate for that. But also, it's a decaying orbit, and then when you're burning in order to get yourself back up to speed to not fall down, the sine wave stuff you're doing, that's random numbers that are input, and you don't have correct, accurate compensation for your different momentum and direction relative to everything. You need to, when it comes to atomic clocks, you need to be able to check relative to the orbit of the planet. Sometimes, let's not get into the orbit of the going around the galaxy, because that the kind of motions there don't differ for an extreme amount of time. So let's stick to the orbit around the planet, the orbit around the sun, and what it's doing. Anyway, once you have those relative motions all mapped out and you understand your motion relative to actual space nearby, which is good enough, it's not perfect, but it is good enough, then you'll have an accurate way of calculating your time per distance, and you'll actually be able to have atomic clocks that work even if you have them over on Pluto, where you don't want to be transmitting the exact time constantly because it takes so long for that message to get to Pluto. It takes 8 minutes for that message to get to Mars, much less Pluto. Yeah, you want that system to be independent. Get smart, and you won't have to be beaming that stuff. You won't have as much error, and you definitely won't have any collisions. But there's nothing really orbiting Pluto when it comes to satellites, so we don't care. We're not having to compensate for other satellites and stuff and this and that. Right?
Is breaking down.
So it only breaks down in certain extreme situations. For all practical intents and purposes, I don't have any issue with calling it a force. To an engineer designing a reactor containment vessel,
This is true.
it's a force. It doesn't matter if it accelerates due to a force pulling it down, or if it's following its natural path through curved space-time, and what it experiences as weight is the ground pushing up on it.
You mean its momentum through the solar system because it is being accelerated by the planet versus in its own independent acceleration along with the planet. Something.
Preventing it from following its geodesic. Whether it's a force or just geometry, doesn't really matter at that point.
Hang with me here. I need a little break. Remember when I said they called this the vomit comet?
I did throw up. Didn't get that on camera. But
Well, stay true to its name. I think that's part of the requirements.
feeling much better. John, what did you just call what I just did?
Tactical chunder.
A tactical chunder. Just a tactical chunder.
Okay, back to my guy Einstein. So he goes back to the drawing board to reformulate not just gravity, but basically everything else. He spends the next decade struggling with this relative nature of space and time. And like Maxwell unified electricity and magnetism, Einstein finally emerges with a new model that unifies space and time. Space-time. In Einstein's new equation,
But it's wrong.
space-time gets warped by stuff, like our sun, or
No.
Earth, or a black hole, or even
3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time.
you. In some infinitesimally
A little bit.
small way, you're warping space and time.
No, it's that your momentum carries along other stuff with it. Like, you can wave and then make eddy currents that pushes all the air away from you, or you can wave and have the air flow towards you. I'm not warping space-time to move the air. I'm breathing.
Around you.
I love that. Now, think about what that means.
Let's say I give you a little push, and you go floating off into space. If we zoom out and look at your path through space-time, we'd see that it's not actually flat. There's all of this stuff warping
little
space-time around you. So you're going with the flow. And the main bit of stuff near you
Later on, we will see this is an incomplete measurement.
is Earth. And look, as you follow your path, you're drifting toward its surface.
You gotta wonder if there's local gravity or local pulling in effects. Doesn't that mean that there is something about the locality of that? That means you're in the area of effect of the planet. But look at the circles here. The moon doesn't reach the Earth, and yet they are moving along with each other. So there's a bigger thing happening. This is already a horrible diagram. Move on.
It looks like you're experiencing gravity.
Well, you are. By the way, in certain applications you do need to account for this, for things like GPS timing, accounting
It's actually called buoyancy.
for things like time dilation from Earth's
And as I said, time doesn't dilate.
gravitational field, as well as reactor control systems, and also calculations of exotic particles such as muons when you accelerate them in particle accelerators. So it's still very real.
But crucially, there isn't any force pulling you in. It helps me to think about it this way.
You have 2 people at the equator and you tell them to walk north. They appear to come together.
But there's no actual force causing them to come together. It's just the simple fact that the Earth
Geometry.
is curved.
Yeah.
That's all gravity is. Don't think about it as a
It's that basic understanding and idea of how a planet works and straight lines and all that. And you extrude that outwards to say that space-time must also be curved. But that is an extreme that you need proof for. And unfortunately, it doesn't solve everything, so it must be not exactly false, but incomplete at best.
force. Think about it as the geometry of space-time around stuff.
But that geometry is based off of an actual function that is happening based off of, and I believe, electromagnetism is the key. Because electromagnetism works along with everything, because everything is made out of stuff that interacts with electromagnetism. It all has protons and electrons, which are all influenced by electromagnetism. So, yeah, electromagnetism is the force carrying, in fact, every atom in existence, and electromagnetism is the force carrying particle. There is no magical other force carrying particle. It's electromagnetism that is the thing that is flowing. It's not a particle. Technically.
The end result is the same, and like I said, you could still use the Newtonian equations and be...
Electromagnetism is basically why there is... You look at how some people talk about why does a galaxy that's spinning so fast, the stuff on the outer edge should be flinging off, but they're not. The answer is all of the different poles of local area stuff have their own effects, and that tapers off the further out you go, but it's all there, from the black hole itself to all the other planetary systems and star systems to the outer rim of the galaxy. Because electromagnetism is everywhere and flows with everything. And because all of the other things are already flowing in this direction constantly, regularly, this constant electromagnetic aura area is stable. It is all in motion. It is the record that all of the other pieces of the galaxy float along. If you consider it to be a record, it is a fluid. Electromagnetism is a fluid. It works with fluid dynamics. If you ever checked out the double slit experiment correctly, you'd know electromagnetism is the fluid that does the thing of the interference pattern that dictates where the electrons go. It's the electromagnetic field itself doing that fluid dynamics. Separate the two parts and you get it. You actually get it.
Close enough as far as accuracy is concerned, unless you're dealing with stuff like high energy physics.
Actually, this classic view of flat, warped spacetime is also wrong. This is all just a visualization, but I try to imagine it more like this.
Shut up.
Just like the classical view of atomic structure is wrong, where it...
Also wrong. This is all just a visualization, but I try to imagine it more like this.
Okay. You are accurate to visualize it like as things go in, it all gets pulled in. But that's not the reason why they get pulled in. And that's not at all a good simulation as to why the Earth is pulling on Pluto right now.
But hang on.
Just like the classical view of atomic structure is wrong, where it shows them orbiting nice and neat.
Tyler, this is your one and only mistake that I have in my head been able to track, and am very disturbed that you would say this. I made a statement in my comments, okay? Very important that you get this, alright? You have to understand, electrons do orbit neatly. They do that. The difference is, they're not orbiting at regular speeds. They're orbiting at ludicrous speeds. 2.2 kilometers per second. What it really is 22 quadrillion atomic whips per second. Wrap that around the atom, and you get why it's a blur. If you had if you go so fast that by the time that you've orbited, you reach your starting point. Physically, that doesn't make any sense for anything that is big. But because it is small, relative to a very small area, and we know the speed of an electron, we know the speed of its orbit is also that. So you have to understand, yes, it is not just that it is a cloud. The electron literally exists in all of those places that you see it in every given second, because it orbits at a rate of about 5 quadrillion orbits per second or something. Right? 5 quadrillion RPM is extreme, and at that level, yeah, you're gonna push around your former self that was there like a split second ago, and you're gonna spread out, and you're gonna take up the entire area around the atom. And then when you speed up, there are more of you spinning around, and therefore, because of how many of you, if you take that speed, relay it to a further distance, wrap that around the electron, the atom, the electron must and only can fill up a bigger shell around the atom. Its speed, when you speed up an electron, the reason why it discretely goes from here to here around the atom is because it literally can physically not take up the space that it used to take up. It has more echoes of itself per second, so it has to take up a bigger area. It repulses itself. Its electromagnetic field influence is greater, so it literally cannot take up the same space it once took. It has to orbit bigger. Okay? And then when you slow it down, it goes back down to its smaller orbit, because there are less of it pushing around. You must understand this if you want to speak correctly.
Passwords really just probability curves.
It's not probability. It is not probability. It is not probability. It is literally going around at 2.2 thousand kilometers per second, which is a stupid number. Kilometers have nothing to do with the atomic realm. That's why I say 22 quadrillion atomic widths per second, because an atomic width is 1/10 of a nanometer. That, compared to the actual distance, is 22 quadrillion. If that gets into your head, you understand why it looks like a blur. You understand why it seems to be everywhere. Because it is! It was! It has been everywhere. For any given instant in time, it has been those places. But those instants are infinitesimally close to each other. Trillions per second. Quadrillions per second. So many times, yes, it looks like a fuzzy cloud. That's because of the resolution that we're able to see right now with light. Can only do so many bouncing offs of the electron. You're also interfering with the electron as you're doing that sensor. So, but you're not influencing it enough that you're totally going to destabilize it and everything. It's still going to do its regular orbits. So you're getting an accurate picture. It's just a very blurry picture because there's a lot there. It's okay that you don't know this, because it's particle physics. It's a little bit above your wheelhouse because it's not relevant to the natural thing. That's fine. But it's not a probability curve. It's just not.
Answer? Why does it matter how I describe gravity?
Like Newton's theory says that gravity looks kind of like this, and Einstein's theory says it looks more like this, but same but different, right? Why does it matter whether I think about gravity as a force that literally...
Here's the thing, right? That same effect that we have of an object apparently moving another object, we see if the effect of two objects pulling in on each other is the true way that gravity works, which it must be in order for the planet to be anywhere near attracted to the sun. Okay, that part they got down correctly, right? If we understand that, then we have to know that there is some underlying thing that pulls everything in to those spaces of mass and out. It is a constant. It's not just it's an in and out relationship. And that kind of thing is a binding type of energy. Like electromagnetism with a magnet, it's always a cycle where the electromagnetism is all pulling in, and if you understand electromagnetism, then you think that nearby other electromagnetic fields, like anything with mass, has electromagnetic fields affecting it because we're all made of protons, neutrons, electrons. Neutrons aren't affected, but the protons and neutrons are, just very weakly. The local effects are said to be gravity.
pulls things.
Technically, it doesn't matter
Static
what you think.
attraction.
I mean, I'm pretty sure thought police aren't a real thing.
Almost.
Or as the curving of space-time?
I think that's a great question. The reason why it matters is because Newton's law, which describes this mass pulling and that mass pulling as you described, it's not exactly correct.
Einstein's space-time leads to genuinely different predictions than Newton's forces. If we...
And again, the answer is...
In order to simulate it correctly, we have to figure out what the heck is actually happening. And guess what? Newton's wrong, apparently. Not exactly correct. And Einstein is also slightly wrong.
With relativistic particles or extreme physics scenario.
thought about gravity like Newton, we wouldn't have accurate satellites or planes or...
We don't. We don't. Shut up. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. We do not have accurate satellites because we are literally beaming the time to the satellites with a ground-based clock. We don't have accurate satellites because we don't have accurate programming to compensate for their velocities and everything per second, blah, 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 in order to properly, accurately know the passage of time. Because we're using an atomic clock, which uses a laser, which uses a momentum-based thing, which is stupid! Stop doing that! If you used an electron clock, it would be more accurate than the laser clock. Electron clocks is about the ability of the electrons to move through the circuitry. It's different than light moving through space because it has to work with the motion and speed up and slow down, and if you accelerate whatsoever with that satellite, it changes the distance that light travels in that tiny atomic clock because the target has started to move at a different rate forward than it was a second ago. So it has to keep up with that target. Right? And a satellite moving at 10 meters per second, right? Light will keep up with that satellite so much at a specific rate and accurately. If you start moving at 11 meters per second, then that light has to move an extra tenth of a meter per second. And so that time has changed of how long it'll take to get to that bounce pad and how long it'll take to get back. And that is simplified to something like the Doppler effect. Right? And by witnessing all of those Doppler effects, we can cancel out all of those weird effects and get a correct, accurate time, but we don't have that program and we're not going to make it, and we don't put it in satellites because it's too complicated, because we're moving at a constant deceleration, and then also random fluctuations make it very difficult to be completely accurate about. It's not a simple woo and then up again and then woo and then up again. It is wobbly and jittery as all heck. And even if we can make a program that does compensate for it, which we can, we just haven't. And we won't, because the lazy way works for now. Okay? We don't have accurate satellites. Shut the fuck up.
Or
GPS.
if you're on a street corner, you would be off by kilometers. If you did not correct for the relativistic differences between where the satellite is that's receiving and sending the signals and your location down there.
How I think about it is, I don't think Einstein straight.
The relativistic, okay, just the thing is moving, right? Light moving through the atmosphere has a certain speed and everything else. Once it goes out into outer space, it has a certain speed. The total distance of where that thing is, it's traveling at over 10,000 meters per second, so you know that it's already moved compared to where you shot the laser. You have to shoot the laser ahead of time to hit where it will be to send the signal correctly. And if you're off, you got it completely wrong, and it's just going to be a little bit wobbly about what time and whatever else and stuff. It has to be based on the Earth directly. It cannot be that is something that's easy to compensate for. The rest of the stuff that's actually happening with the orbit and everything else, that internally is hard to compensate for. But sending the time directly to the satellites, that's what we're doing. That's what works. That is the only thing that we are doing that works.
To prove Newton wrong, I think of it more as he extended it to more extreme scenarios that Newton didn't need to worry about. I mean, Newton didn't have Uber. And calling gravity fake is a bit like saying centrifugal force is fake. I mean, yeah, centrifugal force isn't really a fundamental force, but it's still going to smash you up against.
Centrifugal force is you lagging behind the thing that is moving you. You're all pulled towards the side. The thing about the planet's inverse centrifugal force is that the side is generally so big that it's basically the floor. You hit the side of the wall so much, it's actually so constant. The floor of the planet is the wall that you're hitting. It doesn't have to be the top of the bucket as you swing it around. That's normal. But when you get to be so big as the planet, the side or the floor is basically the same as the wall or the top of the bucket. Yes, you're held in place in the planet by centrifugal forces. And buoyancy is part of that. You're all moving towards, or the planet is moving towards us at a speed through the solar system. That's the main thing. And the orbit makes it so that it's a constant thing, or the rotation of the Earth makes it so it's a constant thing.
It's a wall if you're not braced for impact.
So it has an impact in our daily lives.
Impact.
Now I'm back.
There you go. I like her explanation.
After everything that we've learned, what is it that I'm feeling right now?
Well, Einstein would say that you're just on a space-time path. Imagine for a second that the Earth isn't there, but somehow the distortion in space-time is. So you keep moving along your curved path. You're experiencing the same phenomenon as me floating in the plane. Gravity has disappeared. We're back to 0G. It turns out the only reason we ever feel gravity is when something stops us in our space-time paths.
Yeah, the Earth moving towards you. You're not curving space-time, the Earth is not curving space-time, the Earth is moving towards you.
So if the only thing that makes you feel gravity right now is Earth stopping you, wouldn't that mean that gravity is sort of fictitious?
It
Or
is.
fake?
In the same example about centrifugal force. I mean, I don't have a problem with the statement of saying it's not a fundamental force like electromagnetism, and it's an emergent property of space-time geometry. Sure. But
Yeah.
it is indeed very real.
Is gravity...
The thing is, that gravity that is having the Earth move towards you explains only the local area distortion which we consider to be gravity. Why we move towards the planet, it's moving towards us. End of story. However, has nothing to do with the Earth versus the Sun, which we...
Gravity a fictitious force?
Bingo. That's the important part. That's what you got it. This is why gravity was never there to start with. It's fictitious in that sense.
Yeah, gravity is a lie.
I would still be careful with that, especially the way people are throwing around the word fake.
In that case, I buy it. I'm with you. Except, if gravity is a fictitious force, how do you explain what's happening in empty space between the sun and the Earth?
Geometry.
Now, we're at level 3.
Aha. No. No.
If the goal for physicists is to use as few equations as possible to explain the most amount of stuff, they've done a really good job boiling things down.
If you go back to your textbook and you talk about forces in the universe, and the picture used to be really complicated, there's this force, there's that force. But what we really know is you can boil everything down to 4.
The first 2 mostly just operate within atomic nuclei. The third...
It's a different order than I'm used to seeing it as putting weight.
You see, we're talking about the reason why material on the atomic level is holding together, because there are parts that are moving in such a way that they are glued together. Like an electromagnetic field glues metals together with each other's metals, it's because the field, the energy, not the electromagnetism field is moving through and flowing into and out of and binding the two materials, separate of the electrons themselves. The reason electrons orbit protons in the first place, because there is a thing connecting them. And why protons bind together with neutrons separate entirely.
Of strong, but weak. Mainly think of the force behind radioactive decay, or the conversion of a quark into different types of quarks. And strong is what makes nuclear power plants so amazing, because that is the force that holds nuclei together. And that is all the energy that is released from fission when you produce nuclear power. And number 3 is what you ultimately use number 2 for, to make electricity, and describes the phenomena of interaction with anything with charge. And I'm used to seeing
the electromagnetic force is so powerful that it creates lightning, it makes the electromagnetic field that's around the planet, and it makes solar flares, for crying out loud, that are bigger than the planet itself, because the sun is a gigantic dynamo. And those electromagnetic big waves and fluctuations and pulses and the band of energy just snapping, and it just gets sent out, large chunks of sun matter just being sent out in a big burst, Yeah. That's electromagnetism. It's not a small thing. That's because electromagnetism is literally everywhere, enveloping everything.
Gravity is number 4.
Third is the force from charges attracting or repelling each other. And together, they make up almost every force that you experience in your daily life.
So the buoyancy force, the buoyancy type stuff, the local area of gravity is because everything's moving towards the planet that is moving towards it. The star, however, and the thing connecting two heavenly bodies out there together, that other thing is the gravity. If you separate them in your head as two different types of effects, they are not the same. You see, that Newtonian physics works well for the one thing, and that is the two-body problem. Right? Einstein stuff, relativity and everything else, works towards the local area effects. They are separate.
And scientists
4 is question mark, question mark, question mark, so 5 is profit.
now agree that all 3 of these actually fit together.
Physicists have been able to basically write those forces in the same sort of mathematical language. It's the language of quantum mechanics.
Sure.
Quantum mechanics is awesome.
And why gravity is not there is because quantum mechanics is discrete, probabilistic, compared to general relativity being more...
Okay. Here's the thing. I wanted to give him some dignity so he has his eyes open, whatever, blah, blah, blah. The point is, quantum mechanics is not probabilistic. It is determined. However, the amount of stuff determining all the factors is so vast and interconnected, and we don't have all the answers, so it seems probabilistic. But it's not. Because if you think of how the electrons are, it becomes obvious that it would be a blur. And if you think about that correctly, then the probability flies out the window and becomes just a numbers game numbers that are massive. We're talking about quadrillions. We're talking about quintillions of the size of electrons versus their actual speed and the size of everything else. If you want to talk about gravity and all of that, quantum mechanics can explain gravity because, again, electromagnetism is one of the main things flowing everywhere, flowing along with everything. It's the glue that holds everything together. You could call it the force if you want to. It basically is. I'm not fanatic for saying that. It just is everywhere. You can't say it isn't. But also there is something even other than electromagnetism. There is there is some kind of subatomic, subquantum stuff happening that makes virtual particles. Subquantum. The quantum is basically the stuff that determines, like electrons and that. But there is even below that, the smaller thing, the thing that makes the electromagnetic field in the first place.
That is to say, not discrete values and deterministic, rather than, I wonder what are the odds that I'm going to interact gravitationally with this object. That's not really a thing.
It is our most accurate and successful model of the universe ever. It describes our universe as
I
chunky.
think the reason why it's so accurate is because it's all based on probabilistic math. Just like we use probabilistic math to determine the odds of neutrons interacting with certain particles, such as boron in a control rod versus causing...
It's so accurate because the physics that we have witnessed and the stuff that we have perceived and imagined as the way it would behave Oh yeah, we got that right for once.
Fission in a uranium nucleon. We also use probabilistic to do risk-informed decision-making, to say whether you take down a safety system for maintenance, how that's going to affect the odds of an accident resulting in core damage, or meltdown, as the media likes to call it.
With these tiny, discrete, or quantized particles, but it still can't describe what's happening here. Because which force
They don't play well together, general relativity and quantum mechanics.
is at work here? It's empty space. It's none of these three. So physicists
Not empty space. Again, you have gravitational waves that are able to go from a whole 2 galaxy mergers hundreds of light years away or millions of light years away, and we can feel that ripple. Okay? That's something that we can do. We have done. We proved that we can do. So, like literally turning on, compensating for all the other noise, the gravitational LiDAR, like the 2 laser system, one going straight up and the other one going straight to the side, or I should say straight north-ish and straight east-ish or whatever, west-ish. That idea of having a cross-section of the surface of the planet, blah blah blah, lasers, and where everything else compensates with all of the thing. We found out how to see the noise of everything else on the planet, saying that we know this guy is driving a car over there. We have to compensate for that. That signature is something that we can register and know psychically with our machines that can sense the way that electromagnetism is happening with the lasers. The little gaps. And taking out that noise, then we can properly listen to the outer space. And if the only thing we're able to then not cancel out is outer space, we find the gravitational waves and that wobble, and then boom, right? The merger of the 2 galaxies, the 2 black holes, the 2 neutron stars, the whatever the hell that they witnessed with that machine, that sensor. Forget about all of that. Oh, we looked at stuff out in space. We can literally see all the stuff happening on the planet by using this gravitational effect machine with just 2 lasers and a really good computer system that can tell the beep boops and the gaps between the beep boops. That is to say, pulses of light as they travel. The gaps between each pulses of light, the beep boops, are what makes, hey, that's an image of someone walking across the street. That's the image of a caterpillar, for crying out loud. That's the image of your dog running around. That's the image of you as you were walking down this hallway. This is the image of a car that's rolling down the highway. We have to cancel all of that out. But if we don't cancel it out, we have an understanding of all of that stuff and the ability to record all that stuff. Screw MIB and its sonic ability to see everything. We can just use 2 lasers and gravitationally know all the stuff physically that's happening nearby. No one talks about that. No one wants to talk about that. That's a security risk. That's a thing that we don't use it for. We're just trying to look at stuff in outer space, but we could use it for this. Who knows if we're not using it for this? Then technically, if we know in an instant if anyone was kidnapped, the information from that machine would be able to tell us where the car went, exactly where they ended up, where that signal stopped, with very good precision. We're just not using that technology right now. Or maybe we are. But of course, we can't rely on that Because it means if we know about this stuff, then if they know about this stuff, then that means you can't blindfold someone and bring them to a secure location. The moment you pick them up, they can be tracked from anywhere, and their signature of maybe tapping the floor of the car with their foot is enough to say, we know where you're going, we know exactly where you are, because the tapping of the foot against the car puts different pressure variants on the tires versus the ground, and we can know exactly where those taps are. We can know exactly where any of you are. So, unless you immobilize, and also make sure that we didn't track you where I was to start with, and then just track the car. I don't even need to tap. I don't need to be awake. They know where I am. But we don't, because we're not using that technology for that right now. Could we? Yes. Oh, hell yes, we could. That is a completely other thing no one wants to discuss. No one wants to discuss. Because it is literally huge. Because true. So what is this thing happening? So what does that have to do with all of this? Gravitational waves. That machine that was detecting gravitational waves. We know that gravitational waves can fluctuate and flow through outer, supposedly empty space, but it's not empty. What is there? Electromagnetism. End of story. So what's the actual thing that's happening as we are going through the galaxy? Why aren't we flying off? What's holding us to the planet? Right? Because we don't need to have an exceptional amount of force to keep us relative to the planet. The planet has a localized force area where we'll pull ourselves in if we're not careful. But that's a whole sphere of influence. And there's this whole cloud around the sun, way out there past Pluto, where all of the energy of the sun has been pushing light out away from it, which is literally pushing all the stuff out of the solar system that is capable of being moved. And that whole area effect cloud, once we get beyond that, we go into interstellar space. Past Pluto, past a bunch, past that, into that cloud. That whole area influence is there. But we're not orbiting just the sun. We're orbiting... Why mention the sun and Earth? It's the sun and Pluto. It's the sun and Jupiter. The second biggest thing in the solar system. Tugging on each other, as well as everything else in the solar system, that causes a unified... We are orbiting near...
I had no choice but to describe what's happening here as a fourth force.
Like the nuclear strong force, for instance.
We are orbiting near the sun. We're not orbiting the sun. We are orbiting an area near the sun. Why and how is that? Well, as the sun moves through the galaxy, there is its own energy, area, and influence. And momentum. The attractive force of the sun is still there, all the way up to Pluto. It reaches Jupiter, but Jupiter also reaches the sun. The entire asteroid belt and cloud reaches the sun, it all affects where everything is flowing in the solar system. And it's interesting to note some orbits have not the same disk as everything else. There's another planet that has its separate disk, a separate orbit, separate set of motion, totally irrelevant to everything else. It's not all in a circle, it's not all in an ellipse, it's also in a tangential to everything else. This stuff is moving this way, this stuff is moving this way around the sun. Crazy.
Is modeled great
Because there
using
is an
quantum
attractive
field
force
theory, but
between the sun and everything
gravity-resistant
else.
Gravitons aren't really a thing.
Yes, they are.
Here comes gravity.
We've just had this long conversation about how gravity isn't really a force. And now what you've done is you've stumbled into the biggest problem of 20th century and now 21st century physics.
Hang with me here. We are getting right
Couldn't find it out by the end of the 20th.
to the cutting edge.
But there's a really big problem because
Got a
these
fuse?
two,
No.
they predict different stuff.
They are in conflict. Gravity would make predictions that say quantum mechanics would make predictions that says, relativity is wrong.
And that sucks because if we could just
The following statement is true, the previous statement is false.
combine the two, we could do so much more.
So here's the
So why
thing,
can't we
again, you're forgetting. Electromagnetism is a fluid, it's everywhere, and it is going in to the planet and out. That's how we get the electromagnetic field that's covering our planet, the dynamo on the inside, and the flow of electromagnetism that goes out of the planet, orbits, and is everywhere out there. This halo that protects us from the sun's electromagnetism to a certain degree, as well as the atmosphere doing its part. Electromagnetic field is crazy. And it's this whole torus thing, and that's why we also have poles. You have to understand, it's not just local. That electromagnetic stuff is out there in empty space just as much. It doesn't need physical stuff to exist. It doesn't require physical stuff to say that it is doing something out there. So, the interesting thing about, there's no such thing as a graviton. That's because it's not a particle. It's the field the particles are in.
Do that.
What is the problem? I mean, why can't I write gravity in the same way? Because unlike the other forces, I can make gravity disappear. Right?
In the plane.
Yeah, in the plane, gravity disappears. With the other forces,
Yeah, you don't lose
can't
charge.
make them disappear.
You don't lose the strong nuclear force, thankfully. You would have all kinds of problems if that happened.
Part of the reason we can't unite them is, do you remember those quantized particles in quantum mechanics? Gravity doesn't seem to have one. We can't find any chunks of gravity.
So our situation right now is this.
We have one set of math for the little stuff, for the quantized particles, and we have another set of math for big stuff that's smooth or continuous. But the holy grail for physicists is trying to combine these two. This is
Just as much as there is an electromagnetic field, like the whole reason we can feel gravitational waves at all is because they are a ripple through the electromagnetic field and the Higgs field, other energy band fields that are, again, not moving electrons, not moving light, something else entirely, smaller, more distinct, fluid dynamics based. It is a liquid, which means it must be a particle. However, you would think, but it's not a... It's not... It's the substrate. Particles move around because of this stuff. The reason electrons move around protons and neutrons in the first place. If it wasn't for electromagnetism, there would be no orbiting of electrons whatsoever. Just wouldn't happen. Similarly, on a bigger scale, now you would think it can't be that, because it's not powerful enough to be that. Electromagnetism doesn't do that, and we've made tests and we've checked and we've proven that electromagnetism on a big scale doesn't do those things that you're describing. Doesn't bind Jupiter to the sun. What if they did? What if the connection between Jupiter and the sun looks like a wormhole if you really looked at it? I hate the fact that I even said that out loud. But in the same way as we have this other idea of how to describe the bending of space-time, which is inaccurate, although it doesn't say the full picture, the connection between the Earth and the Moon isn't shown in this diagram. There is no connection whatsoever between the Earth and the Moon based on their local area effects. So there must be a bigger effect, or a better diagram, that shows the total effect that this Earth actually also has an effect on the rest of things that are out there. It's not that there isn't a ripple that is moving through everything else. There is.
Explained in simple terms. Option 1. You basically shove gravity into quantum mechanics. That would probably require finding that missing particle.
Force it in and see what happens. All right.
Electromagnetism is the thing. It moves fluid dynamically. All of the particles move along with it. Then there's other basic buoyancy stuff and how the Earth is moving towards the object that makes the buoyancy localized force stuff. The attractive force versus the localized force are separate forces. Local and orbiting are separate. So the thing that keeps the Moon near the Earth is not the thing that keeps you on the Earth. It's a separate thing entirely.
For gravity, a graviton. But unfortunately,
it doesn't work. The mathematics does not work.
For one thing, even if you did find a particle, how would a particle just disappear like gravity does?
Because it's not a physical particle. Because electromagnetism isn't a physical particle. It is smaller than even light. You say electromagnetism and light are the same thing. No, photons are a physical phenomenon, slightly smaller, much smaller than electrons, but they are still photons. The actual packet of light is still a thing out there. Electromagnetism is not photons. Electromagnetism is everywhere, all at once, with or without light. That if we had, or I should say, with a visible light, clearly there are light spectrums that when we go to stuff like, where is it? I don't remember where it is, but there was a spectrum of light that they said about. There it is, right? There's the visible range, that's that tiny rainbow, and then you have the rest of the stuff, which is too wide or it's too narrow for us to see, but it's there. And it's this other stuff we consider it to be a light that is all part of the electromagnetic field. So if you're going to say that, you could go even further beyond and say a frequency that is simply just wider than we've ever expressed is what is gravity. Gravity waves. The difference between sound waves and gravity waves is the stuff it's moving through. There is no difference between gravity waves and sound. The only difference is the stuff it is moving through.
Of gravity.
Ooh, that
the
one's
most
fun.
important one to know
Chunks of space-time. I like that one.
about is this paper. This is the most cited paper in all of theoretical physics.
Yes.
The author seems to have found a thread of a connection between the tiny quantum stuff and the big continuous gravity stuff. And it's the first time that we've made this connection. But it is so complicated that I couldn't understand it by reading the paper. So I just called him up.
The objective
Oh,
I
there
had
you
when
go.
writing the paper was to understand gravity.
What he came up with is at the edge of theoretical physics. If you started this video at level 1 and you end just knowing the name of this theory, that's awesome. It's called ADS-CFT,
Sure.
and the concept is in the name. This part describes the big continuous gravitational forces in our
For the
universe.
space-time, yep.
And this part describes the small, chunky, quantized forces. But what's really
C stands for
exciting to
chunky.
physicists
Hey, I'm saving big with TD and
is weirdly this slash in the middle. Because what this slash represents is the fact that the two ideas are actually connected here mathematically.
It looks like gravity has something to do with the entanglement or correlations that exist in the system of particles.
Entanglement is not proven, never happened, is not a thing.
That we are discussing.
Trying to model.
Listen, if you want to talk about entanglement, let me just say that a baseball or a tennis ball or a golf ball that is being flung through the air, all of its parts, relative to each other, have a sort of squash and stretch, and they like to do things together. But the moment that it hits something hard enough, all of that connection stuff dashes away. Quantum entanglement is the idea that with a photon of light, you shine it towards, I believe it was a calcium atom, it's split to one side and the other side. What could really have been what happened is that the photon goes towards the calcium atom, and specifically, because of that atom's structure, a photon of equal and opposite polarity is sent one way and the other way simultaneously, such that when we witness the photons on the one side and the other side, the up and down flips seem to be that they are correlated. That is not meaning causation. In order to prove causation, you need to stop those photons when they arrive and then affect them, and all you need is, say, a grid of 9 of these, and then you just press on 3 of them and press on 2 more, and then you have an L shape. That L shape should show up on the other thing. They've never done this test. They will never do this test because it doesn't happen. It's false.
Quantum gravity using tools from quantum mechanics, if you can.
This theory describes a thread that might connect the two. But it is very complex and makes some simplifying assumptions and has parts of it that are still unsolved. But
I've heard the explanation for, some of it you get into the whole spherical chicken territory. Kind of like the whole ignore air resistance argument where you have to, things only work in certain situations.
it's a glimpse of what might become a theory of everything.
Yeah, but we don't yet understand it. But if we understand it, we'll be able to explain more aspects of the universe.
And this is where I just start to dream big. Because if we can fully understand gravity, who knows what we could build? I'm imagining flying
Here's
cars
the thing,
and close
right? Again, it was asked, what is making it so that the stuff on the outer edge of the galaxy is holding together when they're distanced from the source of gravity, if you consider the black hole to be the only source of gravity, which is a dumb assumption. The speed that they're going on the outskirts means that they shouldn't still be going around that black hole. But that's the thing. It's not just the black hole holding everything together, it's all the rest of the stars and solar systems that also contribute to the pull towards the black hole. Every one of them, just like Jupiter, in its separate function, affects the sun and where it's going, and in relation, all of us in the solar system are affected by Jupiter, as well as everything else also affects Jupiter. Equally, on the outside, all of the stuff spinning around the galaxy is affected by everything else in the galaxy plus the black hole itself. And that electromagnetic field permeates everything. It is the record that we are all drifting on. And is the reason why the stuff on the outside is able to go as fast as it does and stay relatively near everything else, because the binding of the stuff on the outskirts versus the stuff nearby the outskirts is enough, along with the gravity force of the black hole itself in the center. Right? Similarly to everything else, if we were to move all of the solar systems in the galaxy, we would be able to push the black hole around. It's affected by us just as much as we affect it, just as much as the Jupiter affects the sun, and everything affects the orbits and motions through the galaxy. Not just the sun, everything affects the orbits of this solar system as it moves through the galaxy. And everything in the galaxy affects the motion of everything else that's out there. And the interesting thing about our orbit around the galaxy is that it's not a straight line, but it wobbles. Just like us and the planet wobbles, the moon wobbles around the Earth. It's not a straight line. There's a bit of angle to do with that. There's a sine wave with that. Knowing that all these orbits are not just ellipses, they're crazy, not circular orbits. They are also wobbly and weird. Wibbly wobbly, tiny whiny, all that stuff. That means, and because all of the things are affecting each other, and that electromagnetism is literally everywhere. This is why I heard at one point that comets are literally not spreading out ice, they're spreading out electricity. Because it's like a dynamo, where the electromagnetic functions of the comet are literally bumping against the electromagnetic field, making a big spark in area, and all of those sparks are trailing behind or trailing in the direction. I forget if it's relative to it facing the sun. I forget if the comet always faces its tail away from the sun because the sun's literally blowing it all away. But it's not the tail, it's electromagnetism energy flowing it out. If I'm wrong, that's one thing that I'm not entirely in my head fully sure if I'm correct about. But I'm willing to admit that. But I might actually be remembering it correctly. It's only a memory. But the main thing is that the electromagnetic field is literally everywhere. It's the binding force of everything. And when people get that, then they understand, yeah, it's not a particle, it's a smaller than particles thing. We're not going to find a particle that binds everything because that's not how it works. Right?
Light speed travel and hoverboards and
Anti-gravity, faster than light. That's jumping the gun a bit much, but I guess it could start out leading to tools, if assuming this actually works out, that could simulate the quantum effects of gravity. Could help with fusion confinement or reactor shielding in really high energy.
The thing that works with the main reason why you're able to have hoverboards at all is something similar to that happens with superconductors versus an electromagnetic track. They hover over the electromagnetic track in a very specific distance compared to the electromagnetic field the track is emitting and the electromagnetism flow of the conductor. So if you were to amp up the electromagnetism of that track, you could make a higher levitation force. And it's literally a levitating force. You can poke on it and it'll bounce back up to where it levitates because the electromagnetic energy is flowing through it and the magnets in such a smooth way that it's literally bound levitating. But what's happening here is that the binding force and everything with electromagnetic forces compared to the ground is like these machines are utilizing powers and energy that is enough to use the electromagnetic field of the ground itself, which is extremely tiny because it's inert ground. It's fucking dirt and concrete. That the electromagnetic field of that, the reason why you can't touch the ground is because you're physically not touching anything. There is a bit of energy that is pushing everything away from itself and binding it all together in different places. So you have stuff like skin versus my skin doesn't just bind together when I put my fingers together. There's something between there, right? Similarly, but in a much more exaggerated way, that amount of repulsion can be refined into one of these things, but the amount of power required to make a hoverboard work, originally the power boards were huge, and it's the more advanced tiny hoverboard that was actually another order of magnitude more powerful, power dense inside of its functions, or possibly more simpler. It was able to do something in a more basic way instead of having to use a lot of power. It was able to do something like just a neodymium magnet versus another neodymium magnet, the repulsive forces are tremendous, or the attractive forces are extreme, you gotta use a lot of, like 50 pounds or 100 pounds of force in order to pull them apart or push them together. Something like that, but even stronger, because again, concrete's freaking inert. But if you imagine a crazy neodymium magnet so powerful that even the electromagnetic field around concrete, which is extremely tiny, but can be excited so that it becomes something that you levitate against. You can't levitate a lot, but you can do it with enough force. Can you? Possibly. We have seen in tests that if you have, for example, an apple or something, plastic or whatever, and you have it dangling somewhere, but then you push it towards, like, the static energy is enough to move that around. If you just intensify those types of things, you can then move not just with ounces of force, but with literally hundreds of pounds of force, as is seen in a hoverboard versus the Earth. But in order to make something in hundreds of pounds of force, like, you're literally having an emitter that's so powerful, it should, as long as it's always directed downward, it'll hover constantly, always, at that level, because it's relative to, similar to the superconductors and the electromagnets, it's relative to that energy relationship. Even if it's just concrete, even if it's just dirt, or anything else that's not naturally magnetic, not naturally metal. The basic stuff can be repelled in this way as well. And I mean, yeah, it defies gravity, obviously, because the electromagnetic field is enough to defy gravity when it comes to these superconductors and magnets, or just two magnets versus each other. And these are basic magnets. Not even fridge magnets can repel each other, although you have to have them really steady compared to each other. But imagine you have a magnet, a neodymium magnet, that is literally kept at a distance away from, but relative to, the ground, such that the thing that's levitating on the ground is pushing away from the board itself. And it's a self-contained thing. And compared to the ground and this other levitating pad, you have some other thing that helps it move along. It's like saying you have one of those, if you were to have, for example, a skateboard that is strung together with a levitating board, such that the wires are like a tension system. You know, like one of those tension integrity tables. All of the force is the binding energy of this one string is really what's holding it up. And the other strings are what keep it from wobbling. Similarly, if you make those same attractive forces on the inside and outside, you can make something like this using electromagnetic fields, but again, it would be like having the main base of the thing be the thing that's scraping the ground, and then the hoverboard hovers over that thing because of its relationship between those two. That's what you can do. But it, again, takes a very powerful magnet, which you can do, and very powerful strings or other forces that hold it in place so it doesn't wobble around, which, when you're trying to move, is annoying. And also, you still have to have the frictionless idea of the relationship between the bottom board and the ground itself. It's not saying it's impossible. It's just saying you might as well be just using a skateboard at that point. But you are levitating over the skateboard, so it's kind of fun. And weird. But like, all of the bumps that happen are translated through the magnetic resistance. So you would still feel all the bumps as you ride along them, even though there's nothing connecting you to the ground, which is fun.
Environments, which I would say which would certainly be a requirement if you're going to build more powerful reactors, that use something more exotic than, say, uranium.
If you're going to build, again, I've said this in so many videos, if you're going to build a nuclear fusion reactor, you need to use sound to hold the neutrons. It's the only thing that'll actually hold it in place relative to everything else in the reactor, which is held by magnetism. The neutrons can't be held by magnetism. They're neutral. So you have to hold them with sound. When you get that in your head and you do it, implement it, then you have something that won't destroy itself by having neutrons hit the walls and break everything. And you'll have more reactivity because the neutrons will be able to recombine with the protons and stuff and make heavier stuff instead of just having everything fuse together, fizzle away, and become inert and useless. You'll be having sustained fusion. But again, you need all you basically need is, say you have, it's similar to the dimples of a golf ball are the inside walls of the nuclear reactor. The sounds itself will reverberate off of these supposed dimples on the inside of the reactor, making the sonic standing wave nodes, which are going to hold all of the stuff that's in the reactor, not just the electrons and protons, but also the neutrons, because sound doesn't give a damn what the polarity is, or if it's neutral. It will affect everything because it is a physical phenomenon. And it can work in that atmosphere.
Thorium.
I don't know. Maybe it's far-fetched to think that one day we could manipulate gravity. But if we never understand it, we never will.
So if you could control...
Conventional gravitational stuff is momentum. Also, if you have those hoverboards literally having their own upwards constant pushing momentum, you can have them all lift up or push away with the same exact force as gravity, only in some amounts, and relative to your own push, so that they fluctuate a bit. And then, but it'd be a lot better with static electricity, electromagnetic forces.
Bullet, you could lower
sound would be
fuel
nice,
costs and launch
but sound
systems,
for levitating,
with
yes, it works.
With asteroid.
Listen, you can levitate droplets of water in sound. There's no reason you can't have levitating neutrons, because neutrons are just another part of the H2O in water. Right? Any physical object can be affected by sound. So here's the thing. If you had a sonic gun, a sonic wand versus sonic screwdriver type idea, yeah, sonic screwdriver, one of the real technologies of the universe that will happen eventually, the ability to send specific signals, that these pulses of energy are able to create the specific size and shape, motion, vibrations, and everything, so that it can do all these physical transformations without using electromagnetism, because it's a force moving thing. So if you have the force moving a certain thing, you can simulate the movement of all the different objects simultaneously, separately, to make the key be present without a physical thing there and turn the lock and open the door. That's a future tech that will happen. We can already put out fire with sound, which is another thing that's cool.
Mining or terraforming even, though it's still going to use energy from somewhere, so what you're not paying in fuel costs for, say, getting a rocket into space would be for energy costs of your device that manipulates gravity. So you're still not getting something from nothing here. But
again, gravity is just momentum. So yeah, in order to get your rocket off of the planet, you need to give it momentum. The thing is, you don't need to do a lot to do that. Except for we have this entire idea of the payload has to be a certain weight in order to achieve the height and everything else. But imagine if you have the space elevator rope or construction big enough that an entire building is able to hold everything together and pull it all up. Then all you have is on the other end is an asteroid, and you let that be pulled away with a gravity assist, then literally you can pull everything up off of the planet like a counterweight and an elevator. The only thing is that the amount of strain is the word I'll use applied to all of these items is more than any of the physical stuff that we have is capable of withstanding, even with electromagnetic fields helping it, which is insane. Because I mean, if you have the electromagnetic fields holding down a car, if you have a heavy enough load, that car and everything else is still going to be not, like you can't lift an entire submarine using electromagnetism using a small electromagnetic force. But with a big enough electromagnetic force, you can lift the entire submarine. This is true. So if you have enough energy flowing through all the stuff, the electromagnetic binding force is stronger than any materials that we've ever designed. Forces that can not only handle being pulled apart, if you have them in segments with different parts, then each bit is able to reinforce the other bits and give you a greater amount of holding force. And then if you have the constant power flowing through everything because the energy is provided by the solar panels out in outer space, a constant power supply and an AC power supply and a constant power relay system that doesn't fail, could make the ability of a space elevator work, as well as just use blimps. Then you're using the atmosphere as structure to hold yourself in place. You don't need electromagnetism to hold everything together, although you can. Through every different section, you can have blimps to help structurally stabilize everything. And as long as they are all powered, which you can still do, and everything, from the big satellite, whatever thing or whatever power system you have, right? It can all be interconnected and it can all be independent, even. Let's pretend that you use some kind of biofuel idea, and then you were able to make enough material that creates the biofuel that then makes the power for the generators, for the power for the thing, for the electromagnetism, for the levitation, and the holding of all of the stuff that is lighter than air to keep the Zeppelin in place and hold together, and also resist lightning, because you're not going to want to get struck by lightning. You're going to want it to flow into things and then be powering capacitors. All of that junk. It's possible to make a space elevator. You're just not thinking in big enough terms. Currently, no. But you can do it.
There's no experimental evidence that we can even make or block gravity. It's a bit like trying to make a fusion reactor using...
You can't block gravity. It's the momentum of the planet moving towards you. What you can do is just like, you know, helium. All of the stuff in the balloon is bouncing in such a way that the force of air around it is overpowered by its bounciness, and then it floats. Helium, hydrogen, or whatever balloon substance you want to use to make this thing float, boom, hopefully not boom, but boom, you're floating. Or just hot air. There is a hot air balloon out there that just simply uses the convection forces of, there's a black side of the balloon and there's a chromatic side of the balloon, which creates enough heat energy in the balloon. It doesn't use external power. It uses the power of even a cloudy day, and this balloon can lift a person. It's an air balloon. I'm not making that up. I'm fucking done. I'm gonna show you what this is. Self-sustained air balloon.
So how much does a hot air balloon like this cost?
Well, this is a home built, so it's built in the basement. Well,
Makes it a little bit more fun,
So
right?
this basically uses hot air and a propane tank and everything else in order to do that. But there is a balloon. I have seen it. It's like that, but instead of it being stripy, it was able to be like, there was a balloon. It was like half silver and half black, and it just worked. Where is that balloon? I need to see that. I need to show you that balloon. It's the best fucking thing. Self-flying hot air balloon. Where is it? Is it this one? Nope. Not gonna do any music. Screw that. Where is it? Where is this crazy balloon? You must see it to believe it. You must. If you go away with anything, if this is the only thing you go away with, it's still gonna rock your world about the fact that this balloon exists. Where the fuck is it? That is a similar... It's similar to this, only the colors are black on the underside, silver on the top, and it doesn't need an external heat source or an internal heat jet. Although it can. It obviously can. For emergency purposes it can, but it doesn't need it to get up to those heats to fly. Where the hell is that balloon? God damn it, hot air balloons are freaking awesome. They are anti-gravity. Shut the fuck up. Why am I getting cartoons? Where is this balloon? Where is this dark and light balloon? I want to see it. The physics of hot air balloons. No. 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 It was a self-sustaining balloon. Is it self-sustained balloon? Self-sustainable hot air balloon. Where the frick is it? It doesn't use like a candle or anything. It just is able to take the heat from the sun and then put it to make the hot air, and it just works. Why can't I find this balloon? I'm not making this up. I sound crazy, but I am not making this up. Where the hell is this balloon? I don't want a dot there, please. Where is this crazy? Is this a balloon? No. Is that it? No. Holy shit, that's on fire. That's definitely not it. Is there hot air balloons, hot air balloons, hot air balloons, hot air balloons? Yes, a lot of negative aspects of hot air balloons. I don't want to know about all of that. I know it's possible, but also, any kind of propane tank hot air balloon, you're going to end up with... I don't recognize you. Where the hell is this video? I'm going to pause the stream and I'm going to find that video, I swear to God. Or I'm not going to pause the stream because I can't find the button. Where's the button? Found the button. I don't care, I'll leave this in. The efforts I go to explain to you a hot air balloon. Was it not? It was either a Veritasium thing or it was another thing. Where it was like Smarter Every Day or Veritasium. It was one of them. Or it was SciShow. It's one of those, and explain a balloon that did not need propane to fly. I can't find it. I know it exists. I am so sad. That's amusing. That's not what I'm looking for. Also, please don't scroll all the way down when I freaking was all the way down here and I try to find the thing. Now I'm seeing strawberry again and I don't want to see strawberry. Where is this crazy balloon? I swear to God, there was a balloon. I'm not dumb. Convection hot air balloon. No, 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 no. 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 Obviously no. I can't believe it's so hard to find this stupid balloon. Hot air balloon skydive. That's a short trip. Well, I mean, I don't know. Balloons go high, so I guess he had... Okay, that's something. No. 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 I'm running out of heat. I'm running out of things. Where is... Not heated! Not heated! You literally... The first thing that you show me is a balloon that is heated. You idiot. Sun power balloon? Sun Power Air Balloon. Please, can I find this video? It would be so disappointing if I can't find it. If I can't find it before my power runs out, I swear to God, I will make another video and we will talk about it. Sun Power artists, K-pop, made a solar balloon history. What?
Download BetMGM Casino.
Powered by solar. Okay. Yeah, it uses all... Hold on, I can do this. I can do this. I forgot I can do this. Yeah, it's very black, so all of the heat energy gets stored inside the balloon. And it's just the heat energy of the sun beating down on it that heats the air in the balloon, so that it becomes hotter than regular air that's around it, so it floats. Flight time around 15 minutes. Touching down safely. This is a similar design. The only other thing is the other design had a silver thing. Unlike ones with build gas, this one is only from the heat of the sun. I told you. So you can use this kind of self-propelled type of thing in a fucking... It's everywhere. Anyway, I remember there was another balloon. It had silver aspects to it, and it was like a convection wave dynamic. God damn it! Get rid of me. So anyway. So the point is that this balloon literally floats without using the heat of propane tanks and heating the air inside. It just uses the sun's power to do it. Or uses it. The other thing is, the other balloon that I saw, because of the silver, it's like one side collects the heat and the other side reflects it back, so it becomes extra hot. It was able to last longer than 15 minutes. This is not the only balloon. But this is a cool video, and I will take this and I'll put this in the description. It is a cool idea, and it is part of what I was experiencing. But is this the one? Horrifying? No. Solar air balloon set record hot air balloon flight. Similar balloon.
When it comes to ballooning, my name is Daniel Bowman, a geosciences engineer who designed this hot air balloon flight ever.
So, to break the record, they would have to reach an altitude of about 100,000 feet, which is in the stratosphere. That's over twice the height, or that's over twice the altitude of commercial airliners.
Because of it.
The thing about air balloons, okay, in order to keep yourself up, you have to keep the air hotter than the outside air. The outside air is influencing your inside air balloon. So, you need to have a heat, pressure, temperature, radius ratio that is greater than the outside cold temperature pressure. If that makes any sense. The amount of cold force has to be exceeded by the amount of heat force that you can provide inside the balloon based off of light reflecting and doing stuff to make the air inside of it hot.
To special makeup, it would also qualify as the highest solar balloon flight. And there's a stowaway on this flight that makes it even more exciting. It's called a Raspberry Boom, an experimental device that listens for sounds that humans can't hear, drifting high above East.
It's basically a Raspberry, it's like a Raspberry Pi, but it's a sonic sensor.
New Mexico or West Texas, it might capture the sound of a volcano erupting halfway around the Earth, or ocean waves crashing thousands of miles away.
Detects low frequency sounds like ocean waves or volcanic eruptions, things that we don't necessarily hear, but it can hear them far away and high above them.
If the balloon reaches 100,000 feet, the raspberry boom might...
The thing that's cool about this balloon, and why the hell am I not doing it this way? The thing about this balloon is it uses reflectivity to keep the light inside. But there was another balloon I remember that was like half hot. Yeah, solar powered hot air balloon. It's a cool idea. Not revolutionary, but a solar panel, powered hot air balloon system is basically the entire surface of the balloon could be a solar panel, and that can provide energy towards a heating coil inside, which is a self-heating from the solar energy to make the power to make the heat thing. But this just uses the heat from the light of the sun, bounces it around, and makes all the hot air hotter. And so it's able to do stuff. This is a converting system. This is a direct system. Okay? And that's awesome. Make Zeppelins out of this. You can make a space elevator out of this. It's still early stages, but I mean, that's freaking cool. I think I would link both of them in the description. I can only take one link at a time, but because I have watched both videos, I can just find each video, and also you can find them based off of the titles that you can see right here. All these are really cool. And that's it. This originally was a watching of this video way back over here about gravity and stuff. And of course, hot air balloons are the best way to avoid gravity because it's literally something else that has the atmosphere literally pushing down so that the air gets out of the way and the hot air just rises and pushes up. That's how that works. So anti-gravity is just you bouncing fast enough with your air in the balloon more than the air around you is pushing down. It's so cool. Yeah, you're lighter than the air, the buoyancy force affects that, and then therefore you levitate. It's awesome. I'm not going to mention the air balloons in his video, but it's like, come on, air balloons. Anyway, check out that. Check out my stuff of all the videos that I've done and everything else, and I'll see you in the next video. Toodles!